Right, so I thought it was about time we did a video about my new project. Not quite as fancy as the Corolla was. No fancy turbo conversions or anything. Unfortunately, that car, it just it was never going to be reliable enough, and that was ultimately why I got rid of it. And next year, I can't really deal with the problems I've had this year. Like I won't have access to the garage anymore. So basically, it was kind of a choice of, well, wing it, fix it, wing it next year, but if it breaks, I'm going to be screwed. So I ended up going for this. It's a Seat Ibiza 1.8 FR. It's the 1.8T 150 brake model. Um, it's yeah, it's a nice little car. It wasn't expensive. I've done a couple of mods to it so far. I've done quite a few repairs to it as well. Starting really with suspension and stuff. I put some lowering springs on it, which you can't really see, but they're just some Pi lowering springs. Like I said, I had a snap spring when I bought it, which was rattling about, so I just thought what a perfect time to put some lowering springs on it, which is what I wanted to do anyway. Like I said, the PI ones, they're alright. The ride is a bit stiffer, but it's bouncy if you push it, so it's not not too bad. It's a nice compromise. It's actually, when I first put them on, I was a little unhappy with the ride height because they were still a bit high, but over the past couple of weeks, well, I say weeks, a few months ago now I put them on, they have sunk down a bit, and I'm really happy with the ride height. I was planning to put some 45s on it, but I just thought, well, if I do that and then I start killing my suspension with it, it's not going to be worth it. So yeah, happy how that turned out. Like I say, brakes and stuff, I've really just servicing things. It's had new brakes, the 288mm discs on these. Quite fancy doing the 312 conversion, but obviously I've just bought new brakes, so that won't be happening anytime soon. In terms of cosmetics, it's had the Leon Cooper R lip on the front of it, you can see there. Like I said, that's just screwed straight onto it. That's like pretty much standard for any VAG, that. The engine really is where I've spent the money on it, and there's a little bit more to come next week, which I'll tell you about later. Well, I'll tell you about later on in this video. Starting with the top, really. It's got a PD 160 intake in it. These are debated of how much they actually help, if at all. It's quite a lot bigger than the standard ones. Like I say, and I didn't want to get rid of the stock airbox. I quite like stock airboxes, so I wanted to keep that. So I thought, well, there's nothing else really you can do apart from modifying things with ducts, but I thought that's just going to be as good as any sort of ducting I put in for it. So yeah, that was that. It's got a Forge turbo intake pipe, as you can see down there. So that's quite a bit bigger than the standard one. That was probably one of the first mods I did to the car. It was a bit of a funny one to fit. Had to actually get the hose clamp on from underneath, but like I say, it's gone on. It's been on fine. The other thing up top is the Forge 008 valve. It had a 710 on it, and I actually bought a new 710 valve for it because I didn't know whether it had one. I actually bought that before I bought the car. I even bought the Forge before I bought the car, so you can tell how this is going to end up. Yeah, and I bought that because I just thought, well, it is going to get mapped, and I thought, well, I don't want it to get mapped and then say, well, it would have made a bit more power, but it's got a leaky blow-off valve. Changed, I just thought, well, let's have it right before we send it to be tuned. And that's kind of been the choice of a few things. It's going for basically what's classed as stage 2, this. And all the stage 2 mods are there, aside from moving things like the SIA and all this vacuum shit up top. But it's not that I don't want to remove it, it's just I can see them just taking it all apart and then it just being an absolute pain in the ass to sort out. So it's one of them. I like the 2Z because I knew it really well and I knew everything about it, but with these, they're a bit alien to me at the moment, so they may go in the future. I expect that pump will pack up at some point, so that'll be going. But I mean, the main reason for wanting them gone is that just boost leaks. I mean, these old vacuum hoses, you can imagine how hot it gets on the top of the engine. So these do perish. I mean, I had to replace this little bit here because that popped off. because it actually tore because the nipple on the forge valve was bigger. So little things like that. But but yeah, like I say, that's really all that's been done up top. It's got an AirTech front mount intercooler on it, which I'll just grab which you may be able to see under there. It is black. You can certainly see that hose. So that was a really nice quality part of that. The fitting's pretty good as well. They've basically just copied the Seat Sport intercooler mounting sub, which actually screws on with the AC condenser to the radiator. You know, it's an interesting one because the radiator's made of plastic, and that's quite a heavy intercooler. Hasn't fallen off yet, but we'll have to see with that one. The pipe works really nice. I think it's a twin pass setup. That's really nice, and it was quite simple to fit. Although I had to chop a bit of my bumper out to make it fit. So for me, I wasn't really asked. It didn't make any odds to me for that. Yeah, I mean that's really all about what's been done now. There's some bits of the old parts. You can see there's the standard turbo intake pipe that the Forge replaced. It's nowhere near as big as the Forge. Like I say, I mean, you know, a turbo has a great potential to suck, and to compress air in. So I suppose the bigger the intake, the better, really. And they are proven really to increase horsepower. Not really on stock setups like this, but on a map setup. This is a stock intercooler. It's a side mount unit, and it used to go in just in that arch down there. It's quite a nice setup. It had all duct into it, so basically the air would travel through there and obviously go straight through it and out into the wheel arch. You know, not a bad setup at all, and I can understand why people say they're quite efficient, because it probably is where it was. Obviously absolutely fine for a stock setup. I've felt no performance increase on the AirTech, but it's not really there to add power. When the boost gets turned up, that will heat soak like mad, because it is only a little tiny turbo on this engine. It's not like that big, well, I say big, it wasn't exactly big, but it's not like that GTX I had on the Corolla, which was a pretty decent sized turbo. This thing is quite small. So you can imagine, to flow the amount of air to make, decent power, it does need to be, it does need to compress it quite a bit. So that AirTech's going to help with that. It'll probably just help keep the power consistent. But that's all that about. Next week it's going into ADE tuning. They're a tuning specialist near me. They do quite a lot of different things. Like I say, but they've done quite a few Polo GTIs recently, and they have exactly the same engine as this. And on their dyno and their tuning, they've been making about 240 and about 240 brake at the fly, and about 300 foot-pounds of torque, which is a hell of a lot. And most of them cars have been pretty stock as well. None of these bolt-ons. So we'll see if they've made any difference at all. But quite looking forward to that. It's getting a Miltech exhaust. That's been the mod on those Polos, Miltech Decat exhaust. Obviously right from the downpipe. So it's getting that in the map next week. Well, that and a wheel bearing, and likely an outer CV boot as well. If they can do that as well. But yeah, like I say, I've not done a video on this yet, so I figured now was the time. And we'll see how it goes next week. I'll likely post a follow-up video. It'll probably be something along the lines of "this thing is crazy fast." But yeah, like I say, well, thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully have another video next week showing where we're up to after it's been tuned. See you then.